Welcome to Kerusi Panas Season 4. Season 4 will focus on the state elections here in 2026. It's going to be an abbreviated version because the contests are very intense, and I'm spending a lot of time on the ground for my own research, so I haven't got enough time to do extensive podcasting. This is the pre-election podcast, focusing on the hot seats in Johor. As we are just out from polls, it's expected that there are a lot of seats that are still open. There's a lot of indecision in this campaign compared to others. There are many fierce fights, as you would expect. There are almost 15 open seats. I'm going to focus on some of the more important races. In the north, the seat of Bukit Ketong, which has been a heartland for Bersatu and Muhyiddin Yassin, in the parliament seat of Pago, also nearby Bukit Naning, as well as Maharani, which is the only seat that PAS won in the 2022 state elections. In the center, I'm going to focus on the seat of Sangaran. This is where former UMNO member Huwad Zakasi has endorsed the Pakatan Harapan candidate. Very interesting contest. Also Layang-Layang, as well as, not discussed extensively, the seat of Tanang. A lot to be left out are the southern seats, and particularly those in JB, Johor Bahru, the areas of Puchiwangsa, Kempas, and Tira. Before I go into these particular hot seats, I'd like to talk about a few of the issues that have emerged in this campaign and why the Johor election is important. For those of you following my writing, I started the election campaign highlighting that this election could be significant trouble for Anwar Ibrahim's government. These two polls, both Johor and Negeri Sembilan, looks to be even more fierce, really raise questions about his leadership. And what has happened in the course of the campaign is that he has been heavily involved in the campaigning. His prominence helped to shape the narratives. Why is this election, a state election, so important for the national stage? Because it's seen as another bellwether of support for the Pakatan Harapan and a state that was so pivotal for its victory in 2018 and in 2022. Without Johor seats, there would be no Pakatan Harapan government to the same degree in terms of the seats that it contains. It's also, however, a pathway for Barisan Nasional to put itself back on the domestic political landscape. Johor is their strongest base, and the election will matter in terms of positioning UMNO and Barisan Nasional in the political landscape. It also will matter for Bersatu, because Bersatu is a party that is wrestling with maintaining its political survival, and Johor is its political base. While attention will be on the Islamist party, PAS has never had the same level of base of support here that it has in the rest of the country. This is in part why it's not contested many seats and given way, hoping that its giving way will position itself for alliances down the future. PAS, however, is hoping to retain its one seat. Whether or not it'll be able to do that without Bersatu support will be very interesting to watch. But there are stakes, other parties as well. Bersama's first real foray into electoral politics is hoping to maintain its deposits and maybe make a breakthrough. It's contesting in 15 seats. Similarly so, we see a situation where Muda is also on the political survival. It's one seat that it has at the state level is being tested. It's also running in a seat where its parliamentary member comes from Said Sadiq. So this is also a very important contest, as it is for MCA and MIC, who have really advocated for more seats. There's a question now whether they'll be able to deliver on that. When we think about Johor, it's the Johor governance, the Johor political contests have implications for these parties, for the pathways for national politics, and perhaps most important, for what's happening in Johor itself. Johor's economy has gone through rapid economic transformation. It's been the highest level of investment. I wrote a piece on's record, which I think raises both some of the challenges that he has faced, but also points to some of his successes. I think what is interesting, however, is when you talk to voters on the ground, that there is this real challenge of being able to get those deliverables down. All the parties have wrestled with trying to win support in a much more fluid, a much more dynamic situation. Now let me turn to the seats and let me talk about the factors first that I think are really come out from this election from a local lens. My attention to local factors helps us understand the dynamics from below. First of all, there's certain parts of Johor that have a different political heritage. So the north region of Johor, especially the northwest, is known for forming many political parties, particularly UMNO and also Bersatu. It's known as a bit of a rebellion area. There's a lot of political activism. In some localities, their particular heritage, which I'll speak about in a few moments about Bukit Kepong. Also, we see the situation of particular dynamics of candidates. Candidate factor has become more important because there's more indecision. So people are looking to see which party that they want to vote for, which candidate they want to vote for, and why. This is where the performance of the incumbent matters. Also, the issues of parachuting. There's a lot of parachuting into Putuangsa, into Layang-Layang, where there was a switch took place in PKR. There's also been parachuting candidates by other parties as well. There are parallel solo issues that are taking place in this campaign where people are on social media speaking to their respective supporters. It's not clear whether or not those cross over, and there's been an intensive activism on social media, particularly around the political attacks that have taken place in this campaign, and also involving the issues of Najib, what I call the red herring claim of a Najib coming out of jail, as well as UMNO and PAS's relationship. These are things that have really started to emerge in the course of the political campaign. Candidate performances, the social media, their parachutes. One of the features about the social media is how much it focuses and connects to the local ground. When we look at social media, we don't just look at the overall number of likes, particularly the likes of people in that community that are actually watching and following that respective candidate. Third factor that is really important from the local lens is what I call ethnic voting. For all of you who've been following me for many years, you will know that I will focus on Indian and Chinese and Malay voting, as well as each cohort voting and sometimes class and gender, in order to be able to understand how socioeconomic factors shape voting. But what's really interesting this particular election is we now see a call to vote for one of your own community. This is politically relevant in a place like Johor. Most of the seats, almost 80% of the seats, are multi-ethnic. This vote for one of your own is going to impact and see whether or not it's going to impact across party lines in very interesting sets of ways. From the ground, we also see the fourth factor, which is machinery challenges. I call this broadly challenges, but there are internal divisions, and the campaign for Pakatan Harapan has been hampered by splits in PKR, which of course has led to the emergence of Bersama. We also see divisions about candidate among UMNO BN in some of their locations, even in MCA, particularly between the split between Wikasyong and Chasolek, have also had spillover consequences. While these were really important in the first week, they become less important in the second week of the campaign. They still are relevant because there's a certain degree of disgruntlement among party faithful in these constituencies. Two other features, I think, are useful to talk about as we get close to the election. One is what I call the secret handshake. Now, people talk about the UMNO-PAS relationship as a clandestine deal. I think it's actually not a deal. I think it's just a courting process. Also, finally, strikingly, is the resources. Campaign machinery does work at a certain level, but it also doesn't work at others. Now what we're seeing in the last part of the stage of the campaign is efforts to really mobilize the voter. This is where the use of resources become very pivotal. In some areas, we can see the use of government resources, and Pakatan Harapan has very strong advantage of resources. In others, it's via UMNO. Question has been interesting is where there aren't resources, be that in the seats associated with Pakatan National, especially Bersatu, who has had their counts frozen, and you can see it's impacted the campaign. In contrast to PAS, where they've been able to mobilize, and PAS has been very interesting in this campaign. It's been less green and more blue, following the Sabah example, trying to be seen as less tied to their traditional branding. It's the way they position themselves. They're still holding on to that label. Now, let me take a few moments to talk about individual seats. One individual seat that I'd like to highlight, first one, is Bukit Kepong. This is a seat that is a do-or-die seat for Bersatu. If it's lost, this is really potentially the end of Muhyiddin Yassin's real push for political power. Bukit Kepong is a very interesting place because it's a place of a horrible massacre that happened during the communist emergency in Malaysia. It's a place where they have a very emotive police museum and discussion about what had happened during this particular incident, in which multiple police officers had to defend their police station and eventually were killed by the communists. It speaks to that residual emotive sense that exists in Malay nationalism, but also among Malaysians about the issues of the left, and particularly the communist insurgency and the emergency period, that have really shaped public perceptions. This is also, in some ways, a political emergency for Muhyiddin Yassin, in the sense that he's trying to hold on to maintain his position. In Bukit Kepong, the incumbent is the former MB, Johor, who served in office from 2019 to 2020. He's a two-term incumbent, defending his third term. His name is Dr. Sahruddin Samal. He runs clinics in the Muar district, which is not too far away, about 45 minutes, depending on traffic, maybe an hour. He won a very small margin. This is a very hot seat. He's contesting against Ahmed Shari Yusof from UMNO, who's 51, the same age as Sahruddin. Shari is known as Cikgu Shari. He's a teacher. He's quite popular from the ground. He's local, and many of the voters I spoke to in Bukit Kepong speak about the need to have someone who is doing better service. We also see a candidate from PKR, an Indian man called Subramani Chamimani. I met his field workers on the ground, very active. This is aiming to appeal to Indian voters, and Indian voters in this particular seat comprise a very small percentage of the seats, only 3% of voters, and also honestly similarly comprise around that share. It's an interesting choice in some ways. Some people say this is a token candidate in this place, but it has an impact in that Harapan is contesting in this particular area, and we can see the groundwork appeals particularly to working in the estate areas. Muhyiddin Yassin was late to come down to the campaign, but he has been campaigning at this seat, recognizing that it is quite important. It is hot seats, an emergency for Muhyiddin Yassin as he moves forward. Bukit Naning is a five-corner fight. It's quite interesting because UMNO is contesting a young man called Muhammad Ghazali Sabari, a lecturer. He's very active in community leadership. He's running against Muhammad Shahruddin Husni, who is an assemblyman. He's the incumbent. He's hoping to hold on. He has served before as a dedicated local community leader. Also running in this contest is Radzi Amin. He's from Bersatu, another contest for Bersatu, party leader and quite considerable grassroots coordinator. We also see Iskandar Mat Alias. He's also a corporate administrator and community organizers. He's standing as the Bersama candidate in Bukit Naning. He's a vanguard candidate for them. Finally, not to be left out, we have Jagannathan Subramaniam, who is running as an activist in this contest. This particular seat is quite ethnically divided and it's quite diverse. It's located near the town of Muar. Bukit Naning has 22,000 voters. It is comprised of 63% Malays, 34% Chinese, and 1% Indians. Very exciting place in terms of the overall outcome. Seen to be very close, in part because of the candidate standing and also the intensive mobilization that is taking place in this particular seat. Close by is the seat of Maharani, which has 40,000 voters, majority similar in composition to that of Bukit Naning, 61% Malay, 35% Chinese, 2% Indian. It is a seat with a lot of older voters. This particular seat is also a four-corner fight. We can see that us had held the seat, but they have replaced a candidate who held the seat with Muhammad Anwar Hayyan, who is a very well-known local ustaz in his 60s, 61. He's contesting against UMNO's Asari Muhammad Asarib, who is a grassroots businessman. He's built in the local community. The candidate from Mana is a man called Muhammad Taqiyuddin Chiman. He's the second youngest candidate. He was the assemblyman for Makota, so he is a parachute candidate. He seemed to be very dynamic. The final candidate is Muhammad Asir Jack Fikri from Muda, who's 30 years old. He has been on the ground working as the chief of staff for Said Sendik, who is not being able to campaign in this campaign. He's also Muda's information chief. So they're all adopting very different types of campaigning. Maharani, I can see it in that past, is really focusing on mobilizing the ground. These three seats in the Northern Belt are going to be interesting to watch because they will determine how strong the National is in this campaign. When we move to the center, to a seat like Singara, this is where we can see whether or not Pakatan Harapan is able to expand its particular base support. This is a real deep and significant fight. Popular UMNO candidate Muhammad Yusuf Ismail, 51-year-old, is running for BN. This particular dynamic is where we see a lot of internal politics in UMNO that have spilled over from the nearby Ringgit seat. He's running against the Member of Parliament on Abu Bakar. He's the Member of Parliament for Batu Pahat. He's got the wealth of government resources behind him, 53 years old. We'll see whether or not voters want to support him. Tremendous amount of social media activity around this seat. Finally, we have Muhammad Rashid Hasnan, who is the former MP for Batu Pahat. When I was sitting and having durian in this constituency, I was talking to some Chinese voters, and they were telling me that their family members are coming home and that they're going to support Harapan. And this particular dynamic we can see on the ground. But when you speak to other voters, they're quite split in where they're going to vote. It is an extremely hot race. Also in the center, but further towards the center of Johor, is the seat of Layang-Layang. Layang-Layang is a small town surrounded by a lot of Felda areas, and the Felda vote is going to be pivotal in this election, and it's covered in my article on voting that came out in Malaysia Kini. What we see in this contest is that there's a lot of disgruntlement over the MCA being given the seat over UMNO. And in particular, the young candidate of Chua Chien Yun, who is the special officer to the chief minister, he's 31, is being seen as a potential candidate. He has been fielded in this seat. He's running against Guna Balakrishnan, who is not from Layang-Layang, who's 45, an Indian. He's a local community welfare activist coming for PPR. He has moved up from Puchi Wangsa. Then we see the former candidate, Abdul Muttalib Abdul Rahim, who's 63. He's a no member. Former Adun that was dropped. He's joined for the national to contest in this particular election. This is a place where I'm watching ethnic voting for your own. When I sat down and had a drink with a whole bunch of elderly, seasoned Malay men from the kampung, they were talking about their own indecision to vote. They had traditionally said they had voted for UMNO before, but now they're torn about who to vote for, whether or not they want to vote for the young Chinese MCA candidate or whether or not they want to vote for Bersatu. This is a test, voting for your own. There's also a sense that none of these candidates are all that strong compared to what they would have wanted. Even Chua is from nearby Kulai. He's not a local. Former BN candidate, now PN candidate Muttalib, is older and his health is not good, so there's some concerns about that. There was a lot of decision. They asked me, who should I vote for? I said, you should know. You're here. You're local. There was a very interesting conversation. This is one thing about Johor. When you have these group tables, which I've had many a table of conversation in my fieldwork, one of the most interesting things has been that many of the Johorians disagree among themselves, and they're all sitting at the same table. Despite political polarization that exists in parts of Malaysia, Johorians put that aside to be themselves and Johorians together, despite their political differences. The seat that I'm looking to, also in the center, is the seat of Tanah. People would ask yourself, why? Why is the seat gaining focus? For me, it has to do with the candidate and the candidate dynamics. What we see in Tanah is a previous candidate was dropped, a woman called Haslinda Saleh. She had been an exco, and a man is filling in, has been fielded by BN instead, Muhammad Azhar Ibrahim. He's your local UMNO leader in Lapis. What we see in Tanah, 4 candidates. The incumbent, Azhar, he's running against Cengku Mala or Nomala Sudirman. She's a teacher from PAS. And this is a place that I'm watching PAS to see how strong they're able to mobilize their base. She's running against Ilya Nadira Sabudin from Amana, who has very dynamic social media. She's the youngest from the main coalition. She's 43. She's been very active in mobilizing support. Siti Aisha Zorbir is running as an independent, and she's 36. This is a seat where you have a rare all-female opposition lineup against a BN candidate. We also see a situation more generally that less than 20% of the candidates are women. And unfortunately, there is that traditional pattern of women running against women in the seat of Tanah. Tanah is interesting because this is, in some ways, a PAS-UMNO battle. The seat is multi-ethnic. It has a traditional area of new villages. In the seat of Penang, it's got 22,000 voters, 49% Malay, 39% Chinese, 11% Indian. It's got a very interesting dynamic of 28% of younger voters. It's also a seat where there was a residual support for the opposition. We saw that Lee Wei-jet ran in this particular contest in Bermuda in 2022 and did very well, receiving a fair amount of the support of the vote. There is a very interesting ground in this seat compared to past. The last 3 seats, Kempas, Tiram, and Putri Wangsa, each have their own set of dynamics as well. The Southern Belt is a very fascinating place, heavily dependent on voter turnout from outside. Tiram, the seat of N40, is run by a candidate, Abdul Halim Suleiman, has been put into this seat, and this has upset the UMNO grassroots considerably. They see this as not respecting the local branches, and there's been a lot of disappointment, especially among younger people. He's running against Nur Zahaila Abdul Ghani from DAP. She doesn't really have a chance in this seat. But in some ways, it's open because she's 38. There's a lot of disgruntlement, and BH is hoping to pick up some of that differences. He's also against Khairul Muntanazar Ismail, who's from PAS. This is another area that we may see some of that disgruntled vote move in a particular direction. Not to be left out is the impactful Howard Fakhruddin Abdul Malik, who's hoping to garner support and not in this particular seat, not lose its deposit, particularly capturing the Chinese vote. What we see in this particular seat, there are 117,000 voters, 56% Malay, 24% Chinese, 12% Indian, and 8% of other communities, including some Orang Asli communities. So Tiram is hot. Like the Tiram itself, it can be quite dicey in terms of what might happen in this particular contest. A lot's going to come down to turnout. It's full of places that have localities that involve particular dynamics of traditional Malay kampongs. Puchi Wangsa is a very different type of dynamic. Puchi Wangsa is a seat that actually has a lot more wealthier landed properties. It's got almost 128,000 voters, 38% Malay, 51% Chinese, and 10% Indians. The candidates that are contesting there also in this four-corner fight are Masli Malik, who has come from outside, former education minister. You can see Pakatan Harapan putting in extensive resources. BN is fielding MCA's Teo Chia Ling. We also see Muda's Sharifa Rashifa Aljanit, supported by president of the party, Amira. She's the youngest candidate in the seat. She's 27. She's running on service and focusing on issues of flooding and improving the local conditions in the community. Bersama's fielding Nicholas Paul Vincent, an Indian who's 36. Wang Wei-seong, his independent, is also running at the age of 49. This is one of the most crowded and high-profile seats because Dr. Masli is running in this contest. This seat is hot, but it slightly favors Masli because of intensive resources and the attention that it's getting. But again, this is going to come down to a voter turnout. This is a test of whether or not PKR can continue to hold on in the urban areas. It is very important for PKR's overall seat count. Last but not least, in a similar dynamic is the seat of Kempas, running three candidates. UMNO's Ramli Rohani is running against PKR's Mohammed Faizul Puad and Salama Hafifi Mohammed Yusna Leni from Bersama, who's 34. Kempas has got only 64,000 voters, 56% Malays, 29% Chinese, and 11% Indians, 4% Orang Asli and other communities. This particular seat is such that it is highly dynamic. It's seen as potentially going to come down to the splitting of the Malay vote and the splitting of the Chinese vote. This is a seat very much about issues associated with political splits. Ramli is a former senior government official, former civil servant. He's a politician. Mohammed Faizul Puad is a young professional, a development worker. Salama Afifi, she is an educator, administrator, and frontline candidate. She's one of the women candidates that Bersama is slating, who's also slating 50% women, as is Muda. These contests, what they speak to is, can these parties retain their base or not? Will the splitting of the political parties affect the outcome? Many of these candidates have to rely in these southern areas on party labels because the candidate factor is not as important because of the sheer number of votes. But the issues in some places, however, the candidate disgruntlement and party machinery do matter. And that's where the seats like Kempas and Tiram will be very important to watch. We'll continue Kerusi Panas when we discuss the consequences of these results. But Johor is hot. Hot in a different way. Hot a lot about political rhetoric, hot on social media, and hot in terms of the seats themselves. And it's hot for what will matter, what steam will emerge from this area. But in these particular seats and in the other open seats, which there are at least another 6 more, Johor will come down to whether or not Barisan Nasional emerges with a strong victory or whether or not Pakatan Harapan basically puts itself back in this electoral positioning, whether or not parties that are on the front line in facing their emergencies survive. Thank you for being here and listening to Kerusi Panas, and I look forward to continuing the conversations about the hot seats. Thank you for listening.